Hi, Carol Allen here with loveisinthestars.com, and I'm sitting here beside a courthouse in black on a Saturday, just a few days after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. And I wanted to take a moment to honor her memory and the memory of her wonderful, amazing husband and the lives they both had by looking at their Vedic astrology charts. Now, unfortunately, both of their birth times are not publicly known, so we can't do their full charts, but we can do what's called their Chandra Lagna charts, which is when you use the moon as the rising sign. And we can see, fortunately, that no planets switch signs the day of either of their birth, and that even the moon stayed in the same sign, which is great, because in Vedic astrology, we emphasize the moon sign over the sun sign. So this helps us understand a lot about them and see a lot of why they lived such remarkable lives and they had such a special marriage. So starting with Ruth, you know, the thing we all hear again and again and again is about her thoughtfulness, her thoroughness, her just unbelievable resilience, how she barely slept, how she worked and worked and worked and worked, how she had such a long career, obviously. I mean, she was on the bench over 2 decades, and how she had obviously such an incredibly long life. May we all be so lucky, right? And every single one of those things, discipline, focus, hard work, longevity, capacity to persevere and overcome in the face of difficulties, all of those things, as soon as I hear them, I think, ooh, Saturn. And, you know, again, she was always talked about as like a very step-by-step, thorough, detailed person who wasn't as much of a go for the gusto, in your face kind of warrior. She was a methodical, put one foot in front of the other, dot every I, cross every T kind of strategist, and that really led to her most important, most impactful successes. And again, every single one of those qualities is a Saturn quality. So I was not at all surprised to discover that she was born with the planet Saturn in one of its most powerful signs. And when we make the moon the rising sign, it puts Saturn in a very take center stage position in her chart. And it has Saturn influencing the whole chart and the whole life. And when Saturn is in its own sign, when it's in the sign of Capricorn, which it is in her chart, the best of Saturn comes forward. And when Saturn is in a take center stage position, which is when it's in one of the angle houses, which is, if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. And then when Saturn influences either the sun or the moon, you're going to get a person with a lot of Saturn qualities. And in Vedic astrology, more important than what sign things are in or what rising sign or what moon sign is what are called yogas. And yogas are formed between the planets, signs, and houses and the combinations with which they form. And so not only does she have Saturn in a very strong sign, but from the moon, it's forming one of the most powerful yogas a chart can have. There's 5 combinations called great personality yogas. And these always imbue a person with incredible capacity for success, capacity for accomplishment, great skills, gifts. Well, she has the one formed by Saturn. It's called Sasa Yoga. And again, it's going to make Saturn a major player in her life. And so Saturn people work like as hard as 3 Marines, as my husband would say. And they have just incredible discipline and focus. And they're always more successful in the second half of life, which clearly she was, even though she was successful early. And they're just known for their fastidiousness and their attention to detail and their indefatigability, and how they're just like the Energizer bunny, right? They just like go and go and go and go and go and go. And how Saturn's also the planet of service and of responsibilities. And, you know, Sasa Yoga people are willing to take on tremendous commitments and to take their commitments extremely seriously and to really be willing to take responsibilities that affect a lot of us, which clearly she did. So I think the biggest thing in her chart really is that, separate from what sign is her sun, what sign is her moon. Now, interestingly enough, though, she has other yogas that are also extremely important. She was born with 3 retrograde planets, and retrograde planets are stronger. They actually give more talent in the things those planets indicate, because retrograde planets are closer to the Earth in our mutual orbiting around the sun. So she has Mercury retrograde in her chart, Mars retrograde, and Jupiter retrograde. Now, Jupiter rules the law, and it rules higher education and knowledge and wisdom and rule of law. Saturn rules the rules. So she would care a great deal about rules, and she would like implementing them. This is part of what she would like about the law and why she would be drawn to the law. But to have a retrograde Jupiter in the sign of Leo, which is the sign of royalty, it's one of the natural signs that affects the career because it's a sun-ruled sign, is really excellent as well. And it's very nice for making a person fair-minded, because Leo is, because it's the sign of royalty, it's not the sign of me, me, me. It's the sign that says, how can I do what's best for the kingdom? How can I do what's best for all the subjects? How can I do what's best for everyone, right? And a Jupiter retrograde in Leo is going to make somebody want to do what's best for everyone, big time, but while following the rules and doing it slowly and methodically. Now, Mars retrograde, Mars is strategy and competition, and it's also the planet of taking action and taking bold action. So even before she was on the Supreme Court, she argued 6 cases before the Supreme Court. That is some bold, brave action, right? And so it's said when a person has 3 or more retrograde planets, they have tremendous power. Now, it's another, though, late blooming thing. And, you know, in India, in ancient India, late blooming meant over 36. If you lived to be over 36, you were old, right? So it's several of the indicators in her chart would show she would come into her own, she would come into her greatest power, her greatest impact, really in the second half of life, which of course she did. Now, it is helpful to look at what's her sun sign, you know, what's her moon sign, what are her other yogas. Another yoga that she has Venus beside the sun, in the sign behind the sun. And this makes a person love the arts, which she did, and this makes a person known for Venus things. I mean, anything you read about her, it always mentions opera, and it always mentions, you know, she threw some fashionable flair into her boring black robes, right? She had all those collars, and if you watch her documentary about her, the notorious RBG, you know, she had a collar for dissenting, and she had a collar for this and a collar for that, and it's so adorable, right? So that's a Venus behind the sun kind of thing. But what I love in Vedic astrology is the Vedic zodiac. We originally had 27 signs, and somewhere along the way, it was decided to adopt the Greek zodiac, the Aries, Taurus, Gemini, etc. But we still always look to what are the deeper signs that make up a person's chart. Now, we can't be sure of her moon constellation, which is too bad, but we can be sure that the moon is in Libra, which, you know, Libra is always symbolized by the scales, right? People think it's the scales of justice. There's a lot of argument that it's really the merchant scales, but Libra is known for seeing all sides of a situation, being diplomatic, wanting harmony. So the other thing she was so famous for was being good friends with Justice Scalia, who she had absolutely oppositional political and, you know, legal philosophies of, but yet she could see beyond that and be dear friends with him. And when she was called the notorious RBG, she thought that was great. She loved it. And of course, it's a play on the name of a rapper. And she made sure to point out how much they had in common. I mean, she had just very charming, affable personality. And that's very much a Moon in Libra personality. And Moon and Libra personality too, along with retrograde Mars, which is strategic but not kicking doors down, and along with that incredible Saturn, is part of why her way of approaching the law and really changing culture wasn't marching in the streets, and it wasn't creating good trouble, as we've all come to know that beautiful saying. It was really doing it behind the scenes in a scholarly, scholastic, slow, steady process kind of way, with a lot of diplomacy and a lot of affability, which, wouldn't that be nice if there was a lot of that going on? Wouldn't it be nice if there were a bunch of her, especially lately? Okay, but we have to mention, of course, her sun sign, and we do know what Vedic constellation her sun falls into. Her sun is in Pisces, which is not surprising because Pisces is, again, the sign of selfless service. Pisces people want, again, to do what's best for everyone and really care about the world. And what's beautiful is her Vedic sign, and this is how you're going to see how amazing the Vedic signs are, is called Purva Bhadrapada. And the goal of Purva Bhadrapada is to support the entire world. This constellation wants to really affect the whole world. Like, people born in this constellation really want big stuff, and they often participate in big stuff. The goal is also achievement. So this is part of why she was such an achiever so young. And not only did she get herself into law school, but OG graduated first in her class as a woman, which was crazy for then, because they were that was so unusual, right? Just to get into law school at all. She was born in 1933, people. I mean, come on. But when her husband became sick in law school, they met in law school, when he became sick and had prostate cancer and was convalescing at home, I'm sure you've heard this, she would go to her classes, then go to his classes and take notes and come back and tell him what he missed. I mean, that's like insane, okay? Like, that is so incredible that she had the physical capacity to do that, the intellectual capacity to do that, and that she would be that committed to her husband. I mean, honestly, every time I hear about what she did in her lifetime, I just need a nap, and I just feel like, what have I been doing all with my life, clearly? So, but of course, it's not fair to compare ourselves to superhumans when we do that, because again, the woman has exalted Saturn, in its own sign, forming that incredible yoga. And then she was born right after a full moon too, I have to mention. And the brighter the moon, the fuller the moon, the more emotional resilience and strength the person has. And then these 3 retrograde planets giving her like superhuman talents and making her queen. So, I mean, I could go on all day about her, but that's enough to like go, wow, I get it. And then, you know, to have the constellation of her sun sign be about supporting the entire world. So her husband, Martin Ginsburg, was really incredible. And of course, none of what she did would have been possible had it not been for him. I mean, he recognized that she was the special one, even though he was one of the leading preeminent tax attorneys in the United States. He was no slouch, but he thought it was more important that she develop her skills, and he would have been willing to stay home and raise the kids, which, again, he was born in 1932. This is like unheard of. And why was he so evolved and advanced? I mean, really. Well, one of the things that's interesting that I didn't mention about her is almost every planet in her chart is in a masculine sign. Astrology determines, just like some of the Latin languages, French and Spanish, for example, that everything is either masculine or feminine. And the masculine signs are all about doing and achieving and accomplishing and protecting and providing, right? The feminine signs are more about being and supporting. And so, you know, whenever I hear of a man that's like, go wife, do it, I always think, well, he must have a lot of feminine placements in his chart. And whenever I hear about a woman like Ruth, I go, she must have a lot of masculine. And so she did. She had almost every single planet in a masculine sign, except for that resilient Saturn of hers. And the Sun and Mercury were not. And so she was diminutive, she was feminine looking, she was gorgeous as a young woman. She was, again, into fashion, even as a Supreme Court justice. So, the Sun is how you present yourself to the world. And she did all that in a girly way, which I love, right? Well, hubby, true to form, has a feminine sun sign and a feminine Mercury, and Saturn in a feminine sign, and then Jupiter in a feminine sign. And this helped him be the more willing support system and the person willing to be the support system. But he was no slouch. He had Mars in a masculine sign and the moon in a masculine sign. He had the moon in Leo. Now again, Leo is all about what is best for everyone. What is best for the kingdom, for all the subjects, not what is best for me. Now, you may know some Leos that are all about them, but that's because they have an affliction in the sign of Leo. But he also was born with a nice, bright, growing moon, which was very helpful. And so the moon isn't just in Leo, it's a growing moon and it's a bright moon. And so you got, mostly a healthy consciousness on the part of the fabulous Martin Ginsburg. But what everyone said about them is that she was happy to be behind the scenes. She was more cautious. She was more quiet. She was more introverted. She was more, reserved. And that he was this ebullient, extroverted, loud, charismatic guy. And that, I have to say, is a Moon and Leo person. And it also is because he's got Jupiter exalted. And Jupiter is the planet of friendliness and generosity. And it's next to the moon. So it's forming a lunar yoga with the moon. So you're going to see upon meeting him, I mean, none of us can anymore, but people who knew him and met him would have seen this incredible Jupiter energy of his because of that, which is really so great. And he also has Saturn in Capricorn because they're close in age. He's just 1 year older than she was, and so he's got this incredible discipline and focus too, and it's retrograde in his chart too. But what he's got that she doesn't have is that exalted Jupiter. And this is why he was also drawn to law. Again, Jupiter's the law. And he has Jupiter and Saturn opposite one another, which makes a person want to minister to others. So both of them were very service-oriented. One of his other yogas is all his planets fall into 6 signs. And that makes a person, all the ancient books say, wise, a benefactor, extending a helping hand to all. I mean, they are just both so great. And then he has Mars in a very powerful sign. This keeps him from being, wimpy. He's got Mars in Aries, and this gave him a lot of fire and a lot of chutzpah and a lot of drive. But, the famous part of the story of RBG becoming a Supreme Court justice was that it was his idea, and he lobbied for her, and he really championed her, and had he not done that, and then Hillary Clinton, another famous spouse, said, "Hey, Bill, how about a woman, and how about Ruth Bader Ginsburg?" So she and Marty got together and did the networking and made it happen, because Ruth apparently was not self-promoting and never would have networked on her own behalf in that way. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking what I was thinking, of course, which is, but what about their marriage, Carol Allen? So in Vedic astrology, we do this incredible 15-step compatibility technique, which is still done to arrange marriages. And I have this awesome report that I love so much that is 9 to 11 pages long, and it breaks it all down. It's called the Right Man Report. So I ran it for them, and now, we don't have either of their birth times, but between two people, it's going to change once a day. So I ran it as though he was born at midnight, at the end of the day, in the beginning, and she was born, I ran it as many ways possible for them. And every single time, they get a high wavelength score. He's the leader between her. They have no unbelievable obstacles, no misfortune. They have no big bugaboos, which was not surprising, right? Because, they had this epic, legendary 56-year marriage. What? Okay. I mean, what? He had cancer in, grad school, and they still managed to marry for 56 years. I mean, so beautiful. It's so amazing. So, any way you slice it, there's tremendous agreement between them. There's tremendous comfort, great communication, great affinity. And this 15-step technique, 3 of the steps are the most special and will make a couple feel like a larger destiny, or like they are, meant to be, or like their love is what we all dream of, right? And no matter what time they were born, they have at least one, and some of the time they have 3 out of the 3, which is probably true given how close they were and how much they achieved together. And one of the 3 is called sense of purpose, and it makes a couple feel like there's this bigger than the both of them thing happening, and it makes their lives have meaning. And the longer they're together, the more meaning they feel, and the more they're able to do together. It's really great. Now, no matter what time they were born, she has a connection to him called innate giving. And this is the part of her that was willing to only sleep 3 hours a night while he was sick, by going to her law classes and then going to his, and then doing his homework and hers. And like, what? I still can't get over that. I would have said, honey, you're going to take this year off and you're going to sleep and you'll just take an extra year. What's the big deal? I would not have gone to both our classes. Of course, I would not have been physically capable. Like, that's just me. But anyway, but back to them. So, without, I didn't need to check. I knew they would come out, stellar, so to speak. And of course they do. And I'm just so happy for them that they had such long, satisfying, beautiful lives. And I'm so happy for all of us. Who knew, right? That when I was a little girl, women couldn't get a credit card in their own name, a mortgage in their own name. They could still be fired for getting pregnant. The prejudice that women encountered at every step of life that we now just take for granted. All of that it has been impacted by the life of both of these people. And as a woman in America, as a woman in 21st century, 20th century, I am just so profoundly grateful. And, no matter your politics, you've got to take your hat off to what she achieved and what she overcame and what she accomplished and the legacy she left for all of us. And I'm going to read you one last thing, and this is a yoga created in her chart that's so beautiful. It's called Parvata Yoga, and it means mountain yoga, and it means a person is, as great as a mountain. And it says, the results of this yoga, and it's complicated to explain and it won't make any sense to you, so I'm not even going to tell you how it's created. But anyway, it says doing acts causing eternal benefit. Doing acts causing eternal benefit. The ripple effect of RBG, changing the laws that she changed, allowing, men whose wives died to collect widower benefits. What she did for all of us, the ripple effect of it for generations to come. The millions of lives she's touched, even if it was all rolled back tomorrow, which don't worry, it can't be. Some of it they're going to try, but they can't do all of it, right? Even if it was all rolled back tomorrow, the ripple effect has already been set in motion, and we are all the better for it. The world is all the better for it. And I am moved and humbled to talk about her celestial map and her beautiful chart and her husband's beautiful chart. And I hope you've enjoyed this. And thank you so much for listening. Again, Carol Allen, loveisinthe.stars.com. I have a newsletter over there. You can find compatibility reports over there, timing reports. You can find all about yourself there too. And anyway, I'm wishing everyone good luck and God bless. We're heading into the most heated, most intense time of the year astrologically. The election's going to be intense. Her wishes are not clearly being fulfilled today. Her replacement, the nomination for her replacement was announced. And we know how that's going to go, right? They're going to really try to ram that home, and they have the majority, and they have the votes, and so her wishes are probably not going to be fulfilled. They're probably not. Jupiter, the planet of law and order, is going to be at its weakest point starting November 20th until April of next year, and that is when law and order is at its weakest. And that is when justice and wisdom seem to have left the building. But it is a temporary thing, and we all have to take the long view, and we all have to lean on what Ruth so beautifully displayed as a Sasa yoga person and an example of Saturn in form, right? She even, we know her as wearing black all the time, which is Saturn's color, which is why I'm wearing it today. We have to lean on Saturn, and we have to take the long view, and we have to put one foot in front of the other and do the next right thing, whether that's phone calls, whether that's voting, whether that's, being happy about the next justice. And the hope is that the work she did cannot be undone. And I'm here to tell you it can't. It really can't. And it lives within all of us. And she has passed us all the mantles. So let's take it and let's not run with it because she wouldn't. Let's walk. But let's go to the gym and keep our bones strong just like she did. And anyway, I'm rambling now. But thank you so much for watching, and God bless.